Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk, back another video day. And today, the Houston Texans have ended up making a big move, shocking move. Well, not shocking, but surprising move, releasing Noah Brown. Noah Brown was a big part of the Texans team last year. He only played 10 games, but started in 7 of those games. He dealt with some injury problems, but he was effective when the Texans played him. 55 targets with 33 receptions for 567 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Those numbers in only 10 games are pretty good. In fact, that he missed 7 games and still had almost 600 receiving yards is pretty good. If you want to go back to the 2022 season with the Dallas Cowboys, he had 555 receiving yards and played 16 games, only missing 1 game. So it shows. I mean, he had a 12-yard leap from 2022 to 2023. And missed 6 games when he only missed 1 game in 2022. Noah Brown has been injured all training camp. Did not play at all in the preseason, which definitely didn't help with the competition that was going on between Robert Woods, Xavier Hutchinson, and John Mechie the third. And ultimately, the Texans decided to cut the guy that was injured. It's unfortunate. Really enjoyed seeing Noah Brown in the Texans uniform. He did great things. If you guys remember the amazing game he had down in Cincinnati when the Texans had a huge upset win in Cincinnati. That was a great performance. He had a big game in the huge comeback win at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those back-to-back games where he really made a huge presence and was a big part of the Texans winning both those games. If you look at it, Texans won both those games. I don't think the Texans make it to the playoffs. I know that the Texans don't make it to the playoffs if Noah Brown doesn't have those games, because, well, I think the Texans might have been able. No, never mind. I don't think the Texans would have beat the Buccaneers. I don't think they would have beat the Bengals if it wasn't for the performance that Noah Brown had in both those games. And I know for a fact the Texans don't make the playoffs if they don't win those 2 games. Those are big games that help the Texans make it to the playoffs. As the Texans only went 10-7, if you lose those 2 games, Texans finish their season 8-9, and that's not making the playoffs at all. So, he was big for the Texans. Funny enough, I remember the exact day the Texans signed him. A couple months before they signed him, I was talking about different signings the Texans could go make, adding in wide receivers. There were wide receivers I was looking at, and a guy I really liked and saw with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys at all. I think saying I don't like them is an understatement, but I do watch the Cowboys a lot just because of the fact that they're always on TV, whether it's national TV games or it's they're on TV, especially living in Houston. Even like on the games where they are, we're like they're playing a bad team, they're still on TV because I'm gonna get the Cowboys on TV just like I'm gonna get the Texans on TV because I live in Houston. So even though I hate the Cowboys, I still watch them. And like last year, just for instance, even though Noah Brown wasn't on the Cowboys last year, my grandfather likes to watch the Cowboys, and I watch all the games down there. So, the Cowboys are always on, and that was the case in 2022. And I got to watch Noah Brown. He was a guy I really was impressed with. Now, I thought what he was doing was kind of overshadowed by the other guys the Cowboys had at wide receiver. They had, they had CeeDee Lamb. They had Michael Gallup. They had a couple other guys in the wide receiver room. I think he was getting a lot of attention. And then they added in T.Y. Hilton. If you guys remember in the 2022 season, they added in T.Y. Hilton. He was not getting a lot of attention. And, he was a guy that had 555 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns in 2022 with the Dallas Cowboys and looked really good. And I remember I said multiple times on my channel, on this channel, and even did videos about the Texans potentially signing Noah Brown. I was a big supporter in the Texans signing Noah Brown. I really wanted it to happen. And I remember the day the Texans signed Noah Brown, because I told people outside of my channel this too. I remember I have this one friend who would ask me, like, he's kind of like a Texans fan, but he's not as big of a Texans fan as I am. ask me like what are the Texans going to do this offseason to like, to improve the team. And this is not this offseason. This is last offseason, the offseason before, the year they drafted C.J. Stroud, all that. And I said, gave my whole plan. And one of the ideas was signing Noah Brown. I think this was like Noah Brown was the only addition that the Texans made that I got right, though. And I was at Memorial Park, which is one of the most famous parks in Houston. I didn't have my phone at all, or I wasn't paying attention to my phone, working out. And I get this text from that specific from that specific friend, and they say, "You nailed it. You were right." And I'm like, "What the hell is he talking about?" And I say, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he said, "The Texans signed Noah Brown." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And then I got home after working out, did a video on it, and he had a great season for the Texans, like I mentioned. I mean. But it's just unfortunate that now the Texans are cutting him. And the big reason why that's happening is because the Texans have a lot of faith in their young wide receivers, in Xavier Hutchinson and also John Mechie. And they also really like Robert Woods. I like Robert Woods too. And the way I look at it with Robert Woods and Noah Brown is they're two veterans that are doing a good job for the Texans. I mean, Robert Woods wasn't as good as Noah Brown was this past year, but he was good. And Robert Woods has looked good in training camp. He's looked good in the preseason. Now, would you rather have someone Noah Brown who's not fully healthy right now, and wasn't even fully healthy last season, missing 7 games, than have someone in Robert Woods who was more healthy than Noah Brown was, and also is healthy right now, which is a bigger thing, and it's looked good for the Texans in preseason and training camp. So I would assume, as much as I like John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, and I think they'll get more playing time than what we saw last year, I'm really thinking that Robert Woods is the wide receiver 4 in this wide receiver room. I think with Noah Brown gone, he was supposed to be the wide receiver 4. I don't see a world where the wide receiver 4 is not Robert Woods now. I like Mechie. At some point, maybe if he starts to play good, he could become the wide receiver 4. Same thing goes for Hutch. But I think with C.J. Stroud liking Robert Woods, he was a target earlier in the year last year, and at times throughout later in the season that C.J. Stroud liked to throw the ball to. Robert Woods early on in the first couple weeks of the season, outside of Nico Collins, was C.J. Stroud's main target, was Robert Woods. So C.J. Stroud and Robert Woods have chemistry. We saw it earlier in the year last year. I think Robert Woods is the wide receiver 4. Outside of that wide receiver trio of Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, I think the next guy in the wide receiver room, the wide receiver depth chart, is Robert Woods, then John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, if you ask me. Let me know your thoughts on the Texans releasing Noah Brown, though, in the comment section, and peace out. Go Texans.